Todos say that I look Spanish. I am not Spanish, no soy español.
Alright, Andrew, welcome to Cyprus Without Borders' first ever podcast.
Thank you.
I've been wanting to do a podcast for a long time, actually. And you're the first person who's taken me up. Well, lots of people have said that they want to do it, you know, and there's lots of plans in the pipeline, but you're actually the first one. Well, you're the first guy who's come in. We've done some
and everything getting in the way, you know.
We've done some live broadcasts with Jim Gunnas. He's from Barros. We've done some live broadcasts, but I think it's nice to not always do everything live so that we can interact with who I'm talking to and not with loads of comments online, you know.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But anyway, it's a stormy day. You can hear the thunder outside.
Yeah.
It's there's lightning and in fact, if I'm really quiet, the microphone might even be able to pick up that sound. Can you hear that? All right, so
my grandma used to say to me when I was a kid, so I used to be scared of lightning, and she used to say, it's just God moving his settee.
Yeah. He's moving his canape or something like this.
Yeah.
So you're an aspiring photographer, huh? You like to take photos.
Yeah. So I do it as a hobby.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've got your Flickr. I've looked at all your photos on your Flickr. Some very nice ones, and I see you're interested in abandoned places.
Abandoned places got a whole history of. I mean, I started doing it when I was 15.
How old are you now, if you don't mind me asking?
23.
23, just a fresh-faced little baby. Obviously not. Fresh face, yes, definitely. Okay. All right. So, what got you into taking photos? You were 15, and how old were you when you got your first camera?
Okay, I was about. So the story is, I got my first camera not because of to do photography. I started going out when I was 13, 14.
Okay.
And when I was going out with my friends, we all had crap phones, so I wanted to have a camera on me and take some good photos. I only had a little digital Nikon camera, so I'd take that out with me.
It's a good one to get you started, isn't it?
Yeah, so I started just taking pictures with friends, and one day at school I was doing a project for drama. I was doing a monologue, and I was working with my classmates, and I took my camera to do some work with them. That day I decided to go to the town in Larnaca. So that's where I live.
Yeah.
That's where I'm from. And I went to Larnaca, but I decided to go a different route, just sort of see the older part of the town, because I've never really seen that.
Old Larnaca, Old Town, yeah.
Old Town, Larnaca.
Yeah.
And I was walking through behind St. Lazarus area, and I kind of got a little bit lost, but I was really enjoying it because I was looking at the old buildings. My passion is history, so I love to look at architecture and the old Cypriot architecture.
Yeah.
And was walking from the corner of my eye, I saw a house with a window open, and it had a bunch of antiques inside, all rusted, and it got my attention. It was abandoned. It's an abandoned building, and I just was just like, wow, this is amazing. Why would anyone leave this here? Why?
You mean all the furniture and everything?
Yeah,
was it in the Turkish neighbourhood?
I don't think the neighbourhood was behind the St. Lazarus area. I don't think the neighbourhoods there were Turkish. Further down, you got Mackenzie, which is Turkish Cypriot.
Yeah.
But no, it was about 3 buildings in a row that were all abandoned. They were, I think the people that had the buildings were rich people as well, because they were quite large properties.
And they've all been behind Ayas Lazaros now, up that way. It's that neighbourhood is changing. There's a lot of buildings there for sale. Half of them have nearly fallen down. So it's undergoing development around there now. I mean, some buildings you wouldn't recognise them, I think, if you went from a few years ago to now, how they've changed. They're being done up, money's being invested. Which is good, it's always tragic to see old houses derelict. and we've seen a lot. We went on a road trip together, which we're gonna talk about that a bit later on as well. I'm quite looking forward to that. To look at some and reminisce on that road trip, because it was a fantastic day. But can I ask you, how did you? I mean, how long? I mean, Cyprus Without Borders, we've been going now 5 or 6 years, and I think you joined the group. I mean, we're a political discussion group mainly. That's what it evolved into. Actually, I started the group as a way to. To clear the air, expose a few truths, and to gain some understanding and some insight and everything. But it did kind of evolve itself into being like quite a sometimes hard political discussion group. There's several reasons why it evolved that way, kind of naturally.
I mean, the group that you had, Cyprus Without Borders, like a lot of groups on Facebook, what Facebook does really good is that these groups are communities.
Mm-hmm.
So you get all kinds of groups. Everyone knows that.
Yeah.
And a lot of people can get a lot of input their way, a lot of information, a lot of good content. They can learn a lot of things, connect with people. And Cyprus Without Borders had a big following. Yeah. It still has a big following.
Has, yeah.
How many members is part of the group, if you know?
It's 3,800 and something. It's always 3,820, somewhere around there. Yeah.
So when I first discovered the group, that was a couple of years ago. I think that was about 5 years ago.
It was a while ago, I remember, because I remember you shared your photos with the group.
Yeah.
It was much different back then. Because we got taken over by trolls. Yeah. And it's something which I think we're still not fully aware of the impact trolling has on people's perceptions, on the way people perceive the Cyprus issue. And
not just that, just anything.
Just anything.
Like
just anything.
You could put a video. So this is just the thing generally with social media. You got millions of people connected on these social networks, and you could upload a video of a guy saving a baby, and someone could comment something bad about it, and or people take value into these comments, and people do read them. Like, if they've got enough likes, then isn't it the more likes they have, the more they're going to be more at the top.
Yeah.
So you could get some guy from China just write whatever shit they want on anything, and it doesn't even need to be fact checked, but
that's the
people
problem.
just go along with it and believe it.
Yeah, and that's a huge problem, because there's a lot of I'm going to try to not to use a bad word here, but there's a lot of rubbish, a lot of lies, a lot of wrong information online, and this is
fake news.
There's a lot of it, and in fact, this is what I'm proud about with Cyprus Without Borders, is that we're aware of it, and we research and we check, and we've debunked a lot of non-factual information which is circulating around there. And there's, I mean, I've read several articles. I'm talking now 4 years ago. The Guardian published an article which estimated that the Turkish government had around 6,000 people on the payroll whose job was to spread wrong information,
Yeah.
And the problem that we have is people are reading this information and people are believing this information. A lot of these trolls operate with Greek names. They use Greek accounts.
Yeah. It's very easy to make a fake account.
Yeah, so easy, too easy. They're not being checked. So you might have another guy called Andrew Avraam who's on there, who's online, and there are many of these Greek names. I've seen it a lot. They say, yep, it was all our fault, the build up to 1974, we deserve what we got. And then there's other people who are a bit more innocent, a bit more naive, not so aware that these trolls are out there spreading this information. So now you've got a large sum of the Greek-speaking population believing it. Well, if these Greek people are saying it, these Greek names all over social media are saying, that it was all our fault, and we, the Greeks killed all of these Turkish-speaking Cypriots, and all of these nasty things that they say. The bathtub murders is a big thing as well, and you've got many of our own believing it.
Sorry to interrupt. What's the bathtub murders?
Oh, the bathtub murders. Well, I made a video about it.
Okay.
It's on our YouTube channel. Basically, the children in the occupied areas of Cyprus. Cypriot children. Not all of them Cypriot, actually, because you have to remember that there's a lot of settlers, Turkish mainland settlers, living in the occupied areas now.
Yeah.
But there are. They went to school with this photo of a mother with her dead children in a bathtub. Have you not heard about this before?
No, I've never heard of this.
Okay, so they went to. There's this photo is displayed up in classrooms, and they teach young children that this is what Greek people do. Greek people, they kill little children, they kill innocent people, and they leave them dead in the bathtub. So this is how they've grown up. There's even a museum in Lefkosia, the house where this actually took place, these murders took place. This house is actually being turned into what they call the Museum of Barbarism. And so they firmly frame the Greek-speaking Cypriots, Eoga particularly, they frame Eoga for these murders. But it's actually been exposed and proven by, Şener Levent, for one of them, who is a Turkish-speaking Cypriot journalist, and he's done a lot to expose all of this fictitious rubbish that you get coming out from the Turkish propaganda machine. He's done a hell of a lot. He's a true Cypriot hero, and eyewitness accounts suggest, and again, I will only say suggest because obviously I can't say for sure, but that the father of the children killed his own family, and left them in the bath, because he was somebody of some quite high importance. He was then just taken over to Turkey, and was held and was protected by the Turkish government. And now.
So then they used what happened as.
And they used that against. Yeah.
Okay.
They use that, and this it's a common exercise. It's they do it very often.
Just to clear up, generally, for the listeners as well, that when we say they in talking about these atrocious things that people have done, it's a small minority that of people, of extremists, people that spread misinformation that do this.
Yeah. Although when I was talking about they
it has a big impact.
I'm talking about the Turkish propaganda machine in particular.
Yeah.
Because it is a very serious thing. It's really. They've even managed to convince Greek-speaking Cypriots that it's all their own fault. There's a large population of mostly left-wing, Agel supporters, and in fact, Agel themselves have they've played their part in brainwashing the Greek-speaking Cypriots into believing it's our fault.
Every group has an agenda, and. It's pretty hard. It's very hard to know what's truth and not.
Yeah.
So that's a really tricky thing that we find today.
Yeah. It's very difficult to understand.
It's nice when we see on the internet people trying to fact check, trying to not be biased, to try and, like you say, debunk information that people are spreading out.
People have to think for themselves, You can't just accept whatever you read and see as gospel truth, And I always say, whenever I'm reading a newspaper, I try to understand how this certain article is trying to make me feel. And then I ask myself, who owns this newspaper and why do they want me to feel like this?
Yeah, I mean, the exact same thing with me. Like whenever I read things from Vice, it's like, oh, I know what they're up to.
Who's
like,
Vice? Who are they?
Vice, they're. If I heard of them, they're very, very liberal. They're a magazine in America. Their articles are very liberal. No one really takes them seriously. If you look at the articles that they post on social media, everyone always are in the comments being like, "This is rubbish." You know, they don't. It's very poor journalism. But
so what are they part of the extreme left? What we?
I'd say yeah. For their articles, yeah, and they have an agenda. Not that I don't mind. Like on my social media, I've liked and follow some liberal and conservative newspapers. I like to get a bit of both. But Vice is one of many organizations, newspapers that are very have no how to say it. They don't care. Like they're very straightforward with what the image that they're trying to get across.
Okay. Right.
But I have to say that
what is the
documentaries
image
are very.
they're trying to get across? What is it? What are you getting from them? I'll have to watch them a bit.
If you just looked, I'm trying to remember some of their headlines.
Are they chaotic?
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're extreme. Like they just put some probably not like dissing people that like the movie Fight Club or.
It seems to me that there's
talk a lot about race. Talk a lot about politics and in the extreme. I mean, I should give some examples of some actual articles that they've wrote. If you Google it and look through the things that they publish, you'll see.
Okay.
It's just they have very poor journalism. They don't really check up on the things that
they're publishing.
Yeah.
Okay.
Their documentaries though are very good though.
Okay.
Funnily enough, they have very good documentaries.
Because I've got this real problem at the moment, which it's a real issue for me, is that at the moment we've got like the extreme far left and the extreme far right, and nothing sort of really in between, you know. And I think that's a real problem, and the thing is, you'll find that the media, they're very keen to give the far left, the extreme far right exposure, because it just creates chaos. And I'm a bit concerned of the amount of chaos that we've got coming along the horizon. Let's not talk about COVID-19. Let's not talk about COVID because I don't even know if we're allowed to on YouTube. I don't even know if we're allowed to talk about it.
Oh,
but they're censoring people all the time.
I've heard a couple of things about that, I think, but I don't know.
Well, comments.
It's a whole rabbit hole that will go down, but no.
There's just one thing, because I am sick of talking about it, I've got to be honest with you. I'm sick of talking about vaccines, and I'm sick of talking about whether it's a real virus or not, because the question that I want answered is where it came from and why. Because
so many different answers for that.
Do you believe the bat theory?
I don't believe it. No.
You don't believe it. I don't believe the bat theory either.
No.
You know, it just sounds too far fetched to me. The Chinese, they've been eating bats. You know, and coincidentally, there is a lab in Wuhan which it appears to have escaped from, where they were working on certain different. Bacterias or whatever they were working on in there. But that's the thing which concerns me the most. It's just like somebody, I do feel it's deliberate, and somebody is trying to hurt society, and we should be trying to find out who. Well,
I don't think it's one person. I think it's
a
very organised thing. I mean the virus itself is real. However, what it's being used for, the agenda by the people in control.
It's brought people are getting depressed. People are
more than that. The economy's crashed. The world economy.
The economy's crashing. People are getting depressed. Families are breaking down. There's so much bad stuff going on, and someone has to be held accountable. You know?
This isn't just because of why not chaos. Someone's benefiting.
Yeah. Who is then? Who is?
Who knows?
There's. I was speaking with my doctor about it. I won't say his name. He's my general practitioner, and I said to him, so what's it all about then? Is it just so that they can sell us the vaccine? And he said, no, that's sort of part of it, but it's not high up on the agenda. He said to me, they want to be able to, slowly we're surrendering some fundamental human rights, which we're slowly surrendering, willingly. And
could be a little test, all of this, like
could be for something bigger to come. But
yeah,
and what scares me is that people, there are some people out there who are just waiting for the vaccine, and that's fine if you want to take the vaccine.
I mean,
if you don't want to take the vaccine, also fine by me. It makes no difference. But like I said, the one thing I want to know is how COVID-19, and it's a question the media isn't asking either. I want to know how it escaped that lab in Wuhan. It wasn't an accident. I don't believe things like this happen. I mean, you're working in a lab. There's high security. It's not like you can accidentally release a virus across the globe from a lab. I don't believe that theory. I don't believe it was an accident.
There's so many people that have come out with answers for this.
Yeah.
I think there was a book or something in the 80s that was talking about the future. There's going to be like a massive virus, and like a lot of the things that this book discussed.
Which book was that? Are you talking about the George Orwell book, 1983?
Maybe that. I'm not sure. Yeah, I'm really don't quote me on that. I'm not sure.
No. Hold on.
I've heard about a book or something where it's scary, similar to what the events that have been taking place.
Yeah.
And then people sort of question, wow, was this known
that it was
decades
going to
before?
happen? And it even said Wuhan and everything in the book. I know this book that you're talking about. I have seen that page.
It's just a bit mysterious.
Yeah.
It makes me a bit skeptical of things.
Anyway, let's should we have a look at your photos? Should we take a look at some of your photos?
Yeah. Well, actually, we said let's talk about the day to give a bit of background.
It was a lovely day.
To give a bit of background of the trip that we did.
Okay.
So we've already established I love doing photography.
Yeah.
And since I was 15, I started I'm going to all sorts of villages in Cyprus.
Yeah.
And I got into abandoned places because from my love of history, I discovered a love of places derelict.
Yeah.
And there's a whole mystery to it, and I really like that. And when I was in my teenage years, I was going with friends. I was going with I used to just drag my mum around to different places, abandoned villages, or I'd go to town and I'd see this abandoned building. Oh, let me go inside there. I would only you'd be surprised. All the places that I've been to, how almost all of them, the doors have been unlocked, or there's been a window open.
Yeah.
There's some places that I don't go inside because it's a bit dangerous or it's completely boarded up. But these places really are abandoned, nothing.
Completely abandoned.
Yeah, and it's been a really interesting journey that I'm still on. I've got on my list. I've got around another 50 locations. Actually, maybe more, I think, of places I still want to go to. The best trips for me is with a bit of planning, but also being spontaneous. You have to be a bit spontaneous as well. And so, I discovered you through the Cyprus Without Borders group.
Yeah. We got chatting on there,
Got chatting, and then I came in the summer of 2020 to Cyprus, and then I messaged you and I was like, let's
do it.
Let's do a trip.
We went.
We have the same interests. Let's
Susku. Went to Susku. Do you remember? Susku was our first stop, yeah. And then we worked our way through. It was a treacherous drive to Vreccia. Hey.
Yeah.
Did you watch the video I published on Vreccia of that day?
I watched a bit of it.
Yeah. It goes on a bit long, and I think if you're, there's a lot of talking, and you were already there, so why are you going to want to watch it again? And I think at the time, I think maybe I was a little bit insensitive. Not insensitive deliberately, but just when you look at these houses, long been abandoned. There's nothing left in them anymore, you know, and it's difficult to really feel any sort of empathy or feel any sort of
Really?
yeah, I didn't feel much until, maybe because I've been there before as well, but that house we went to, the door had been broken down, and there was still bedding and kids' pyjamas and tea bags and all of that. Do you remember the Nescafe?
Yeah.
That house, that touched me the most, because it was also fresh, and it looked like people it hadn't long been abandoned. That house, somebody was living there. Somebody left behind their belongings. You know, they had to leave. Maybe they were attacked. You know, who knows who was living in there? Maybe, you know, a homeless family who decided to. Who knows? We just don't know.
Mm-hmm.
And it was all so fresh. And then if I take that little bit of that one house, and then you can imagine that once the whole village was like that. There were hundreds of villages like that all
these
across
places
Cyprus.
all the places that we've seen abandoned, all these villages, they were once quite lively, you know.
Vrecha especially,
Yeah, everyone in each other's business. Like, you can just imagine the street scenes of people, you know, walking the street, selling food, people hanging out at the cafes, stuff like that, playing football in the streets, the kids, you know, all sorts. So you're saying you don't get empathy?
No. No. Listen, like, it was difficult to really feel. It was a bit like going to, you know, when you go to Kurion. Have you ever been to Kurion?
Yeah.
Like, you know, there's no sign of life. There's no sign of anybody ever being there.
Yeah,
do you know what I mean? And so there wasn't these personal belongings. There wasn't this, you know, this kind of.
I think
no one had left their aura behind.
Yeah, I think.
But that house.
Vercha is more relevant to us, and it's, you know, because with it being more modern, we have a bit more of a connection to it, because the reason it's abandoned is from the war.
Yeah.
The war was how long ago? 1974. So that was terrible with math. 40 something years ago.
What are we in now? 2020? 46 years ago.
Yeah. So that, you know, our parents were around when that happened.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it's still quite fresh. There's still open wounds. So I think probably from that's why we could connect with places like that more.
Mm-hmm.
It's still relevant.
It's just what I was trying to sort of. I mean, obviously, there's some sort of fascination. There's some sort of feeling, but I didn't feel that house, that one house in particular, really made me feel deeply sad. You know, and I didn't feel equally as sad at the other places because there was no sign of life. But when you go into that house, and it looked like they had to leave in a hurry, you know, they didn't pack everything. It's not like they moved. It looks like they left in a hurry, you know, because they left so much stuff behind.
But do you think that was from the war? Or
no, this is much more recent.
Yeah.
Somebody was living there more recently in that house. That wasn't from the war. This is what I'm trying to say, you know. Like, it looked like somebody was living there a couple of weeks before. Yeah. And they'd had to go, you know. And when you look at that one house and imagine in 1974 there were thousands of houses like that, you know, after the invasions.
There was another house that I went to in Vrecha that again had belongings in, and there were a lot of Christmas decorations. Yeah. And all the type of belongings, like objects, furniture. It was just a lot of Christmas decorations.
In Vrecha?
Yeah, in one of the houses.
Wow.
Actually,
that's very strange.
I found a checkered blazer, found shoes. I found kids' drawings, which were a bit creepy.
Was that when we were there together?
Yeah.
You went off walking a bit.
When I went off walking, that's when I found it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we missed it. I missed a few bits then. Hey.
I mean, you know what? It was getting dark.
Yeah.
We did a lot that day.
The ranger came to us as well. Do you remember the ranger came? He was asking us.
He was like, "Hey, what are you doing?" I was like, "Oh, I'm just taking pictures." Like, "Oh, okay, be careful."
Interestingly, like, I mean, when we went there, I didn't know much about the history of Vrecha. You know, I didn't know.
I had no idea.
But the guy, Yeah, the guy who we were talking to, do you remember him? The guy who was picking the walnuts?
The almonds.
The almonds? Were they almonds
yeah.
or walnuts? Were they almonds?
They were almonds.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. They were really nice. He gave us some.
Yeah.
They
They were
really
difficult
nice
to break open though, man.
Oh yeah. I was there with like a big rock. Like,
yeah.
Worth it.
But
Fresh.
we went there not really knowing much. I had been there before, and I was really a little bit, vague with my knowledge. I didn't really know much, but the guy up there, he told me that, and it makes a lot of sense. In Breccia, they had a very good irrigation system, so they were able to come up with amazing produce, fruits, crops, whatever. And so it was like a market village, a market town.
Yeah, everyone went there the guy said
shopping there.
Every, that village had every type of tree, fruit.
Yeah, everything
was grown there.
They had everything there. Yeah.
Interestingly, if you look on the map, it's right on the edge of Bafos forest.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like so the area of where Breccia is, it's kind of like in the middle of nowhere, like this whole big barren land, and there's a couple old villages. There's the villages that we went to. Was it Susciu? And there was Aios Yorgos, Breccia. What was the other one? There's the one with the bridge, the iron bridge we went over.
Iron Bridge.
Remember?
Iron.
And we saw that waterfall as well.
Oh, all the way up there.
Yeah, it was. I don't remember the name.
Wow. Yeah, I can't remember the name of that village.
But this is what I'm saying. Like these places are in this piece of land that no one goes to.
Nobody goes.
And it's a bit. Land's kind of dead there.
Mm-hmm.
But where Breccia is located,
yeah,
is before Bafos Forest, and there's like a whole mixture of trees growing there. And it was really interesting.
Yeah.
Like one side of the village, if you looked, you've got where the forest begins, and it's just green, and the other side is like rocks and desert.
Yeah.
Remember?
Yeah, I do remember that. I remember we drove a long way and we were thinking, should we turn back? But we kept going. Was it then?
And I just remember when we were in the village.
Was it Fasula? It wasn't Fasula. Let's look at this here now. All right, because we drove up from Susciu. There's a Fasula there. Susciu. Was it there? It could be. Fasula. Sure. I think we went to Fasula.
We went to around 6 villages.
Yeah, we did. Yeah, Yerovasha maybe.
Yes,
we went to Yerovasha.
Yeah, we went there.
We went to Yerovasha. Yeah.
That was the really small village, I think.
Yeah.
And it was like on a really steep slope, and we went to that church. There's a little church.
Mm-hmm.
That we went into.
Yeah. You know Breccia. Do you know how it got its name?
No.
Okay, because like I said, I didn't really know much about it. I went there, and it was all a big learning circle for me as well. And published the video, and one of our members who is from Breccia, she wrote to me and she gave me a little bit of, her name is Perin. She gave me a little bit of the history of the village, and basically, so they were descendants from the Venetians.
Oh, I've heard that before because, wait, is she Turkish Cypriot?
Yeah.
Because I know someone that, wow.
You must be able to hear that on the microphone, yeah.
I know someone who I went to school with. He told me about this his family history thing that his family did, and his family, I think, were from Lorugina. That's in the occupied area.
Yeah, just about. Yeah.
Next to Bila, I believe.
It's not that close. It's next to Limgia. Limgia.
But there's a website talking about his family history that someone did in his family. Really informative. They went really far back, and they found that they're descendants of the Venetians.
The Venetians, yeah. Oh, the people from Lorugina, yeah? Yeah, could be, yeah, because I think the Venetian descendants were more likely to convert to Ottomanism from Orthodoxy to, I think so, because
Turkish Cypriots were created.
This is what Linobambaji are. They are Christians from Cyprus who converted to Ottomanism.
Mhm.
You know, to avoid taxes, to have a better life, to stop their daughters being raped.
Yeah.
These kind of
These
because
things did
these
happen.
these things happen.
Yeah.
People they're not spoken about, but these things happen.
Yeah.
So all right, we'll convert to Islam. We'll become Ottoman. For the good of my family.
See, at the time, you had the people of Cyprus who were, in the during the Ottoman reign,
Mm-hmm.
were under constant persecution.
Yeah.
Under a lot of,
Of course.
it was really difficult times to live in. And before that, you had the Franks, you had the Venetians. Okay, the Venetians weren't that bad.
Well, it depends on what you read, I think.
Yeah.
It depends on what you read because, I've spoken to Greek Cypriots, one cousin of mine in particular who's in Australia, who, many people have read somewhere that life was so bad under the Venetians and that
I read
actually...
there's something as well, actually, it rings a bell.
And I'm wondering if this is Turkish propaganda because they always try to paint the image that actually the Ottomans saved Cyprus from the Venetians, and that way, we were so hard done by the Venetians, and so this is basically the Turkish narrative. The Turkish propaganda narrative is that whatever was
from the government, this is what they want.
Well,
Turkish government.
just from the whoever's behind the propaganda, whoever's controlling the propaganda machine,
Yeah.
and they, they'll say, well, you had it a lot worse under the Venetians, but again, it's too far back in time. If I'm going to read a book about it, if I'm going to read a book about, even if I'm going to talk to somebody who says they know about it, I'm going to say, well, which books have you read and who wrote those books?
That's the right way to find out
exactly.
where you get your information from.
I get comments on...
it's good to get a bit of an idea from both sides and sort of come up with like a general...
Yeah, like a common ground somewhere, some kind of conclusion.
Yeah.
But, like the past is the past. We could spend a long time sort of talking about it, discussing it, dwelling on it, and maybe we shouldn't go so far back in time.
It's too much to talk about.
It's way too much because... we need to talk about now and how we move forward.
It's not like we hold a grudge, right, against these things that happened thousands of years ago. Well,
no, not for. Things that happened hundreds of years ago. But I do feel like it's back.
Is the camera still recording?
It's still recording.
Is there anything you want to check? Like,
it's still recorded because there's batteries in there which keeps it backed up. So the battery, the mains went off, but the power stayed on. So
okay, is everything okay then?
Everything's okay. Everything's still going. Just to give people, we got a thunderstorm going on, so the electrics.
Wow.
That's never happened before, where it's come back on again.
No.
Usually it goes out and it stays out, and I've got to go and turn it back on. But the electricity goes out here quite often. What were we talking about anyway? Before that happened.
Information.
Oh, you're talking about now. But before we go there, because I've been trying to explain to you where the name Vreccia came from, and there's a city in Italy called Brescia.
Really?
Yeah.
Brescia.
Do you know you've heard of it?
No.
I've driven past it. I've seen it on road signs when I was in Italy. In fact, it's in northern Italy, not far from Milan. And
there's so many places around the world that have the same names. So many places, especially in Cyprus.
Yeah. But that's where the Venetians went, and they named that village of Vreccia after Brescia. And it makes a lot of sense because when like the B in Italian, it's spelt with a B, but then when that B in Greek becomes a V, Brescia, so it kind of makes a lot of sense. So the people in Brescia and like you said, you mentioned Lorugina. They converted and they became Ottoman for an easier life, to protect their families. And there's a lot of animosity between a lot of Greek-speaking Cypriots who I speak to. They bear resentment towards Linobambagos. You know, like how could you turn your back on Orthodox Christianity? How can you go from being a Christian to becoming a Muslim? But then,
No, that's a long time ago.
how do you know how it felt back then?
Yeah.
You know, when there's a bunch of bad men coming along and they want to rape your family, kill your sons, chop their heads off and all that. You would do anything to save your family. So I don't think it's right to judge people for, you know, who back in time they made that decision to convert.
Yeah.
But there's also grifo Christianos who they converted, you know, so grifos Christianos, secret Christians, who converted to Islam, Ottomanism, but they were still practicing Christianity.
In secret.
Yeah, in secret. There's also so much history. There's so much. But when we're talking about now, to move forward, the big reason why we have been unable to move forward is because of the misinformation. The Turkish-speaking Cypriots, we spoke about it earlier, all of this information about Greeks killing children, leaving them in the Bible.
As in how? What do you mean?
To come towards a solution. To come towards to reunite the island, to free us from occupation.
That's a whole topic, though.
It's a whole topic.
Reunify the island.
And I do think though, Andrea, I do think that with the right information, it's possible. It's possible.
People just need to be more educated.
Yeah, they do.
But the problem is,
educated with truth though, not the way they have been educated.
If this was after the war, you know, and people then from, you know, both sides wanted to try and fix Cyprus, put it back together again, you could. But the thing is, we're dealing with a whole different kettle of fish now, because in the north, it's not Turkish Cypriots anymore.
It's Turkish.
Because when the war happened, after the war, when the Turkish Republic of Northern Cyprus was created, illegally, not recognised by anyone
De
apart from
facto,
Turkey.
yeah, in 1983, yeah.
What they did, they started importing so many people from mainland Turkey, who
in violation of the Geneva Convention also.
Ask any Turkish Cypriot their views on
the mainlanders.
The mainlanders. Turkish Cypriots,
they don't approve.
Really don't like Turks from mainland Turkey.
You wouldn't though, would you?
They're entirely different people. They have a very different culture.
Yeah. And you wouldn't like them either, because a lot of them, they've come over and they're treating the Turkish-speaking Cypriots as second-class citizens in their own country, you know. And so how can they? You know, they're stifled.
Extreme.
They're really stifled in their own island, on their own island.
Yeah.
You know.
So that's a whole other thing. We're dealing with new people who aren't Cypriots. They don't come from Cyprus.
No.
And
They don't.
But
there's also, on the flip side, there's also a substantial amount of wealthy, powerful Turkish Cypriots who are happy with the situation the way it is, because it's made them powerful. It's made them wealthy.
I think a lot of people have benefited from the division.
A lot of people have, even on our side, you know.
Yeah.
You know. Have you ever been to Miligi's in Larnaca?
Yeah, I love it.
I mean, they're from Lisi. So you know, and they've got this amazing business there, doing really, really well. I love the food there, man. Love the food.
Yeah.
And so you know, they and I kind of wonder, well, if there's going to be a solution, would they be happy to give up that amazing restaurant, which has made them so wealthy over the years?
What if there is?
They were wealthy before the invasion, though, because I know that's my dad's village, Lisi. They're from my dad's village. So
I think we're too far gone to. I don't know. Wait, so if there is a solution, do you mean like? What do you mean by they give up their restaurant?
Yeah, to when it's not their property. It's that all of those properties along there are Turkish Cypriot.
Because there's Turkish Cypriot properties that Greek Cypriots have been using. Is that right? Because I'm not really sure about that. Because I've always wondered that.
Okay, because they lost their properties in the occupied areas. They were supposedly set up temporarily. They supposedly set up. You know, they had a restaurant in the village, and when they became refugees, you know, they were and they were given this restaurant temporarily,
Mhm.
In fact, all of the village of Gofino up the road, there's all everybody.
Oh, yeah, you said they're.
They're all supposed to be temporary housing until a solution is found and they can return home.
And it's all ongoing since.
Savino Rock Bar, you know Savino Rock Bar?
Yeah.
It's a
I was there the other night.
Yeah, it's a Turkish Cypriot owner who owns that legally, and Mulo, who runs the place as a refugee, he's there temporarily until there's a solution. But when will Mulo be happy to give up his?
I didn't even think about that, you know. For the listeners, just to be clear, that a bit of background of all of this is that when the war happened, well, to give a bit of history, a bit of background, before the war happened, Cyprus was the percentage of Greek Cypriots were on the island around
78%,
78%,
and 18% Turkish speakers. Yeah.
But the people of Cyprus, Greek Cypriots and Turkish Cypriots, and those terms were actually invented by the English.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know.
Troubles.
I know.
Back then they were just Cypriot.
Yeah.
And you know, these people lived together. They lived in the same villages. You had a mosque, you had a church. A lot of Cypriots spoke Greek and Turkish.
Yeah.
There was no trouble between them.
Mm-hmm.
But when
minorities of minority group caused the
when
troubles.
politics got involved and extremist people got involved, things changed. Then you know the war happened. So when the war happened, people from the north part of the island, Greek Cypriots, were forced to flee, come to the south, and then Turkish Cypriots moved into their properties, and as well mainland Turks, and vice versa. For Greek Cypriots to move into the Turkish Cypriot properties in the south, from what I understand.
That's basically it,
And it's just an ongoing thing.
Yeah.
Like there's still the war. I think I heard that the war hasn't technically ended. There's just a ceasefire. There is the.
Who's I don't know who's.
But I'm not sure. I mean, that's what I heard.
Are we still in a state of war?
We're not. No, we're in a ceasefire.
We're in a ceasefire.
But that doesn't mean that the war has ended.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But the war is ongoing. There's still, since the invasion, there's still trouble between both sides.
Yeah, there's not been anything in a.
It's a war without bullets.
Yeah, well.
You know.
There's definitely a propaganda war, you know, and they're trying to get the what the propaganda machine. I know we've mentioned it already, but it's no harm in bringing it up again. What they're trying to do is they're convincing the Turkish-speaking population of Cyprus that the Turkish mainlanders are needed to protect them from people like us, you know, and that in fact the Annan plan and any other proposed solution has always included Turkey remaining on the island, maintaining their military presence on the island, and they justify that by saying, well, you need us to protect you, otherwise they'll kill your children and leave them in the bath, you know. And so there are many. I know not all Turkish-speaking Cypriots are that gullible, you know. I know some of them see through the lies. But you know, I was at a barbecue up in the mountains a couple of years ago now, and there was some Russian friend of mine, and there was some other people there, and there was one Turkish Cypriot girl, but she had to leave, and you know, she had to go to work, but her boyfriend was still there. And talking to him, and he said to me, oh, you know, yeah, but you know, because of the Dokhny massacre, the the Turkish Cypriots, you know, they don't feel safe. They don't feel safe because of the Dokhny massacre, you know. Do you know about the Dokhny massacre?
I only heard about it the other day because I went to Dokhny. I mean, it's not to say that, look, both sides have faults and have done wrongdoing to one another.
Of course.
But this person was saying, "Oh, we can't move forward because of the Dokhny."
Rather, they need the Turkish military here because of the Dokhny massacre to make sure it doesn't happen again. But what he doesn't know and what his girlfriend doesn't know, you know, is all of the history before the Dokhny massacre. They're not taught it, they're not told about it. So the Dokhny massacre happened, was it the day after the second invasion in August, you know, where the Turks violated the ceasefire.
Yeah.
They violated the ceasefire and they advanced further and they killed a bunch of innocent civilians. They raped a young girl and chopped off her father's head in front of her. You know, the girl fell pregnant. The Turkish military have been found guilty in European court for something like, I think, around about 90 cases of rape during the Turkish invasion.
You know, something. Sorry, just add on that. Interestingly, the Church of Cyprus after the war legalized abortions.
Yeah, because of that.
Because there were so many
yeah.
Greek Cypriot women
That's
who
right.
had been raped.
She had her first abortion,
Yeah.
and they had been raped. And so this guy who I spoke to at the barbecue, who seems to think he's so intelligent and so well informed, you know, that the Turkish-speaking Cypriots need protection because of the Dokhny massacre. Well, I need protection from the Turkish military because the Turkish military have been found guilty of raping children. You know, these 90 cases of rape, one girl as young as 11. Don't we need protection from the Turkish military? So for the Turkish-speaking Cypriots to demand that Turkey remains on the island as a guarantor is completely. It's a ridiculous claim. Absolutely ridiculous.
See, we're not afraid of Turkish Cypriot.
I'm not afraid of them. No.
Well, I've got Turkish Cypriot friends.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's the military from Turkey who
Exactly.
have got nothing to do with Turkish Cypriots,
but
it's the extremists.
Yeah, but the people who you talk about who you don't have a problem with, they have to do their homework and wake up. You know, because I've spoken with many of them before, you know, I've had conversations with them before, and I felt the bad vibes from them, and I don't blame them because they've been brought up to believe that every Greek speaker kills children. This is what they've been brought up to believe. You know, and I've watched documentaries and you know, I've tried to really gain an understanding of the Turkish Cypriot point of view, and I've seen the documentaries, man. I've seen what they're brainwashing people with, and if they want protection because of the Dokhny massacre, well, and I know atrocities were committed on both sides, but one thing I will always point out to people is whatever the Greeks have done, whatever any nation has done, nothing comes close to what the Turks have done. And this, I stand by this with all my heart, because not only did we can go back as far as World War II. We know what the Germans did. We know what the Nazis did. They turned around, they admitted,
put their hands up,
they
and
apologised,
say,
and they're making sure it's never going to happen again.
Lethal Turkish mentality.
The Turks will never admit. They will always claim victim, and they will always point the finger at everybody else. And this is a mentality that has to change. If I'm going to live on an island where there's a Turkish military presence, then that mentality has to change. We need an apology. We need some admission. And you could, what the Germans did was awful, really, really awful. But they turned around, they apologised, make sure it will never happen again. And you go all around, there's no statues of Hitler anywhere. You know, there's no statues of swastika signs are illegal, banned. But the Turks have statues of Ataturk all over our island. Yeah. And this is the man who led was it the genocide in the against the Armenians and the Greeks, World War One and the aftermath of around then. He is the man who led these genocides, and they've got statues of him all over the place. He's the father of the Turks. He's our godfather. He's our.
But the Turks, they don't allow their people to be educated and admit they're wrong.
Well, they don't allow people to be truthfully educated.
Yes.
They don't allow people to be truthfully educated. Yeah. It's one thing to have education, but it's another thing to have truth. There's some stuff at school that we learn, which some of it is questionable, and some of it, there was some stuff that we should have learned that we didn't learn. But you know, we learn a lot of stuff. I mean, did you go to school in Cyprus? I don't think you did.
So, I went to school in Cyprus, but I went to an English school.
Okay. Where'd you go?
Med High.
Did you go to Med High?
Yeah.
I went to Med High.
Did you?
In the first year it ever opened, yeah.
No way.
Yeah, man. In the first year it ever, but then I moved to Cyprus back to England after that. So.
Oh.
Yeah.
And you only went for that 1 year?
I only went for that 1 year and a little bit of the next year.
Do you remember Mr. Fanny's? I don't know if he was around,
What
but
did he used to teach?
PE.
No, we had Caderinos. He was a wrestler.
Oh, no.
Yeah, we had him.
Oh.
He
I
was
didn't know that.
Yeah, I went to Medai. Panagiotis Manouris was the headmaster. Despina Liolio was the... what was she teaching? Science teacher. Despina Liolio.
No,
Oh man, she's the only one that's still there.
Really?
Despina. Miss Despina.
I never did science.
Yeah, you never
So I don't know.
Okay. Yeah, man. But anyway, that school's gone on. I mean, at the time, there were 3 classes, you know,
No.
small.
You know, interestingly, before Med High was a school, well, Med High, it was an all-girls Catholic French school. My mum used to go there.
They still own the building.
They still do.
Yeah.
And then my mum used to go there. It was a St. Joseph's school.
Uh-huh.
And you know, there's a whole history behind that.
Uh-huh.
There was different diseases in the 20th century that hit Cyprus really hard, and there's a whole history about the convent and the church helping the people of Larnaca. There was like a whole charity. They set up beds there for people that were suffering from the disease. I also know in the 80s and I think the 70s, when the civil war happened in Lebanon, refugees went to the convent and they were sleeping.
Wow.
The Catholics were looking after them.
Well, yeah. I mean, they're still there, the nuns. You still see them.
Yeah.
Well, you did when I was at school.
There was a nun when I was in school, and I graduated from that school 5 years ago. There was a nun there. I think she might still be there, Sister Thomas. And she used to teach my mum.
Oh, wow.
And I used to see her around, and my mum used to come pick me up at school, and she used to say, "Oh, Sister Thomas, you know."
Yeah.
It's nice.
Did she remember her?
Yeah.
Yeah, she remembers your mum. Wow.
She was very strict with my mum. My mum was a bit of a rebel.
Do you know what? The nuns, I mean, my mum went to a convent school in England and my sister went to a convent school, and I've spoken to other people who went to convent schools, and apparently it's just like... In fact, I went as well to the infants, to Croft Lodge in Torquay. I went there, nuns, and it was infants. But after there was infants and kindergarten, and then after kindergarten, there was transition before you went to the junior school, and I wasn't, and there were no boys allowed in junior school. Only and I went. I remember they were horrible, man. They were so strict.
Like military.
Yeah. I thought you're meant to be nuns. You're meant to be like good-hearted, loving, and
it's the old schools, discipline. They still are, but tough love.
So what was she like with your mum when she saw her after? Was she more friendly?
Oh no, she was happy. She was happy. She was happy.
Where is?
And my mum's an adult. Like,
is your mum English?
No, Cypriot.
She's Cypriot, but she went to a Catholic school.
Yeah.
Wow.
But she was born and brought up in the UK.
Yeah. My mum was born in the UK, brought up in the UK as well, in London, but my dad is from Lisi. In fact, my dad is from Lisi.
Where exactly is Lisi?
So you know when you go to Bila and you cross over, the first village you get to is Bergamos, yeah?
Yeah.
From Bila you go to the crossing, you go to Bergamos, and then you drive another 5-10 minutes and you get to Lisi. And the first time, I mean, I've been, and the first time I went there, I went with my dad, and we sat there to have, and my bapu in the village, he had the village gafene, you know, by the Fundana, you know, so there was the water supply in the centre of the village where people would go to get water.
It's probably the same water supply that we saw in Vrecha, and I think maybe there were a couple of other villages. You know, the ones
different. It was hexagonal.
It's different. Is that older than the
Ottoman style? This is before the English.
Because the waterfalls that we see, the old ones in the villages, they were erected from when the British were
Yeah,
here in
you
the
can see
50s.
the years on them. Yeah,
So all the 50s
Yeah,
and
yeah,
40s
yeah.
that they were erected.
but this one I believe it was from. I mean, it's that Ottoman style. The arches, the way the arches were built, it's that Ottoman style. So I'd imagine it was from the Ottoman era where the Fundana has been there from. But he had the Gaffanir right there, and I went with my dad the first time. We went there with my dad, and what an experience! Because when I was a kid, and I remember being like 4 years old and looking at the map of Cyprus, and my sister pointing out, this is Bapu's village, and this is where Yaya's village, but we can't ever go there, she said. So to finally have that opportunity, growing up as a kid, and then believing you're never ever going to be able to go and see the places where your parents, grandparents, great grandparents, and so on grew up, went to the beach.
It's different for the refugees. All Cypriots hurt,
Mm.
in that since the war until 2004 when crossings opened, they couldn't visit the other side, the occupied areas,
They
to
couldn't.
see where they grew up and
Yeah.
what the places that they had to flee.
And then they all went on buses, man. Like the buses, like when
and they were
opened
told,
them,
"Oh, it's just temporary. You're gonna go back."
soon. Yeah, this is just the next step, towards you coming back permanently.
Yeah.
But obviously that was 17 years ago, and still we haven't gone back permanently. But
Hopefully one day.
hopefully one day. But it's not. It will only be if Turkey is forced to, and they're not gonna just say, here you go, have your houses back.
No,
they're
there's
never
gonna-
going to do that. The intent isn't there to do that. I mean, they're building up this new super mosques all the time and all of that. These aren't the actions of somebody who is planning to give back Cyprus,
Yeah.
But my Yaya, she went there. She went to Lisi like the day they opened the crossings. They went on busloads, and she went with her daughter, my auntie, and obviously when they left the village, my nonna told me they fled the village because there were planes bombing the village, English bomber planes. She knew specifically that there were English planes bombing the village, and they were bombing the village, and they got the civilians to flee the village. They got the civilians to leave the village. And
So
they
who
left.
bombed the villages?
The English, with their planes, and it came out in the Cyprus files afterwards, which were released by the Greek military, which confirmed that there was a British aircraft carrier off the coast of Gerinia. So what they were doing, they were taking off from the northern coast of Gerinia from an aircraft carrier, and they were bombing villages in Cyprus to get the Greeks to flee, to get them to leave, to pave the way for the Turks to come and take them. And so my Yaya, when this was going on,
I didn't even know this.
Yeah, man.
But this is
Fact.
for anyone that want to look this up.
Yeah,
Is
look
the
for the
Cyprus
Cyprus files, or I think it's the Cyprus files. Yeah, not the papers. Cyprus files. It's in there. It's in there. That there was
Okay.
a
I'm gonna
British.
look into it.
Yeah, look into it. And but my nonna told me that there were British planes bombing them before the Cyprus files came out. So when I read, or when I heard, I haven't read them, but when I heard from somebody who has read them that there was an aircraft carrier off the northern coast of Gerinia, British one, it confirmed, it made perfect sense. Of course, they were bombing the villages. I already knew that. They were getting civilians to flee, And then, so she buried her jewellery, she buried valuables, wedding rings, whatever, all of it, underneath a pomegranate tree which her father had planted, who was dead by then, and she underneath the pomegranate tree. So when she went back 30 years later, the first place she went was to her back garden, and she started digging under the pomegranate tree. But that coffee shop, it was the house, and next door was the coffee shop. The house had long fallen, it wasn't there anymore, it fell down, and so that house had fallen down, and she went to, in the garden, still there obviously, she starts digging. Then the old man there was another old man running the coffee shop now. He came, and obviously they didn't find anything. They didn't find it. But when I went for the first time with my dad, the old man said, "Yeah, your mother. She came. She was digging to find under the tree." He said, but and then he said, "But I found it under the tree." He said, "All those years ago, I found it under the tree, but I gave it to the police." He said. Do you believe him? Do you not? I mean, it's just there's going to be thousands of stories like these. You know?
I've heard so many stories. There's so many stories of weird, wonderful stories, disastrous stories, sad stories that happened in the war when people left their belongings, left their homes, and stories of them going back. And we're seeing this now, currently, with Varosha. Recently, with who was it? The ex-Turkish Cypriot president left office. What was his name?
Akinci.
Yeah, he left, and Erdogan, Turkish dictator, put Tatar in power, and then they opened up Varosha, which I never would have seen this happen. To be honest, it's a bit of a shock for everyone.
I think they're digging their own grave.
Yeah.
The way they're behaving lately, I think they're digging their own grave. I really do think that they're.
I mean, it's illegal what they've done. It's gone against one of the agreements or laws as part of the United Nations.
The Geneva Convention, which states an occupying force may not populate the land they are occupying with people from outside, and there's many violations.
But nothing's done about it.
But nothing is done about it.
That's the thing, and this is what
why is that?
Us Cypriots have had to live with for decades.
Yeah.
This injustice.
Yeah. Why do you think it is?
All these organisations that exist, the United Nations,
they're
NATO.
a NATO country.
Yeah.
Turkey is a NATO country. So why do you think they're allowed to get away with what they do?
Well,
there are a lot of theories. Some people say it's down to money because they're a big economy, but I think there's more to it than that.
Well, I think Turkey is just it's a superpower, not a superpower, but kind of near to a superpower. At least in the Eastern Mediterranean, it is. It's got a lot of influence, and they're buddy with the EU, with Germany, and their allies tolerate their actions. Just kind of sweep it under the rug because of the power that Turkey has. I think,
and a huge Turkish population in Germany as well.
Yeah, in Germany, and Germany run the EU.
Yeah,
and
they are the biggest economy. Are they the biggest economy in the EU? Probably
one of the biggest, I'm sure.
Germany, France.
I think maybe in top 3.
Yeah, definitely.
I heard that Turkey has a pipeline that goes through that feeds all of Europe with maybe oil or something. I don't know. Don't quote me on that because I'm not exactly sure. But there's so many different things that I've heard. But one thing for sure is that Turkey keeps getting away with
whatever they want to do.
War crimes.
Yeah.
And these organisations aren't really doing anything about it.
They're not, no.
And that's the really frustrating thing. Especially now with Varosha, what they're doing, they have opened it up. They're making it look pretty, putting a new road, putting new benches. They're going to start fixing up the buildings, and those buildings all belong to the Greek Cypriots. Yeah. I don't think there were Turkish Cypriots from Costa. I'm not sure. In Varosha,
I think there were some, but it wasn't like it wasn't. I mean, my Yayam Bapu have a house over there, but it wasn't. There wasn't like a substantial Turkish-speaking population there, but because of it being such a huge tourist town, many went there for work.
90% of Cyprus tourism was in Varosha.
Was in Varosha, I know. And they came with so there were Turkish people working in Varosha, having job, or Turkish Cypriots, I should say, doing their jobs there, working in Varosha. But the properties were owned I'd say almost exclusively by Greek speakers. You know, I don't think there was like a huge amount of Turkish speakers who owned properties there, if any at all. You know, whereas in Larnaca there were a lot. And this whole village where we are, you know, it used to be.
But then again, interesting, like Araripo is the second biggest village in Cyprus, or town.
Is it a village? Oh.
It's a town,
Is it?
actually.
Yeah. Okay, yeah.
But Araripo, there's no mosque in Araripo.
No.
And there's, I don't even know the population, but there's a lot of people live there. But there's
Yeah,
no mosque.
no,
Whereas in other places, like it just depends. Just
yeah.
where there happen to have been, you know, Muslims and Christians,
Yeah.
Turkish Cypriots, Greek Cypriots.
Yeah. Because the mosques in, I mean, that's another thing as well worth talking about, and how generally, you know, the mosques are respected over here, and up there, like our churches are being used as stables and barns and storerooms, and don't forget, some of these are old bison dying over 1,000 years old. You know,
these are protected by UNESCO.
Yeah,
and a fact. So there's been over 200 Christian buildings, churches, monuments that have either been destroyed entirely, left to rot, or converted into barns, or converted into, I think they converted some to mosques as well.
Yeah. They did, yeah. Though, I mean,
and there's a lot of information on this online. People can look into it, but that's what they've. That's the truth. That's what's happened.
The church in my dad's village was converted into a mosque.
Yeah.
In Lisi. And there was another chapel somewhere on the outskirts of the village, which was apparently, I mean, I've heard this from one of our members of the group, Clarissa Bell, which was completely destroyed now. She went there to try and find it, and she asked one of the locals, and they were like, no, not. You know, locals, one of the settlers, I should say. Yeah.
How many icons and artifacts that are really sacred to our church, to the Greek Cypriots, that have been sold on the black market?
Yeah, one icon turned up in Boy George's house.
Yeah.
Did you read about that?
Yeah.
One of the icons turned up in Boy George's house, and he had to. He returned it. Obviously, he returned it.
These things come from somewhere. Some of these things could have been stolen.
Yeah.
And they need to be returned. There is, trying to remember, the other day I saw someone has been selling items, so like old Cypriot, like clothes and bitarka and like farming tools, like antiques.
Yeah.
But they're all from Famagusta, and people were speculating that there's this person going around selling all these things that he probably stole them, took them out of Varosha, perhaps.
Okay.
I don't know.
Well, I mean, lots of things have been stolen. And
everything.
Everything.
Literally everything.
Every possession that was abandoned by its legal owner after the invasion in the occupied areas has been sold.
Yeah.
Or used by somebody else, or thrown away, or burnt, or whatever.
And this is really like I've been seeing recently, because people have been able to go to Varosha. They've opened it up. People are going also from the south. Greek Cypriots have been going to see some of the properties that fall under the areas that have been opened. They've been going to these properties, and they've been looking at their houses that they fled in the war. Yeah. And they've been writing about it on social media, and it's really emotional. It's really, really sad.
It's very sad. It's very sad. And this is, it casts my thoughts back to what I was saying about Vreccia earlier, and about how I couldn't really feel anything because it had been so long ago. But that one house, which had been...
That had the most sign of life, though, as well.
There was so much sign of life. It was all so fresh. And then when you imagine that, but on a much bigger scale, you really start to feel the magnitude of the situation.
It's overwhelming.
It's really overwhelming, and it's tragic. It's very, very sad. It's very sad. But should we look at your photos from Breccia as well?
Yeah.
I think it would be really nice. I mean, you've got other photos. You've picked some of your favourites.
So this was really hard. I've got loads of photos.
Okay. All right, let's have a
And I
look.
selected a couple for us to look at.
Okay.
So you do the... Okay,
So what is this? This is a horse. Where did you take that picture?
Okay, so this was when we were trying to find Vreccia and we got
Mhm.
lost.
Okay.
And we came... I think we left the village of Ayos Yoros.
And we went down that horrible hill. and
Yeah, and your car is not a 4x4.
It's not. No.
So
It's not.
it
It's
really
not a
struggled.
high car. It's a low car.
we just about managed to get there.
Yeah, yeah.
But the journey to get to Vreccia when we got lost was a great drive.
Mm.
We drove through mountains, the
track.
hills,
Yeah,
dirt
yeah,
track, and through a valley.
Past the aqueduct. Remember that
Past-
aqueduct?
yeah. So this was before the aqueduct, and this is just a horse that was tied up.
Yeah.
And I remember you saying, "Oh, Manamu."
Yeah, he's
It's-
on his own there.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? Tied up there.
a nice little shot.
Yeah.
So next picture. This was from
Susku.
Suskil.
Yeah.
This was the first village. As I mentioned before, we can see on this is the water well. Was
Yeah,
it-
there was quite a few of them there. Hey, there were 3 or 4 of them in Susku.
And these are the ones that were erected by the British.
By the British, yeah, British.
And the
yeah.
date is 1956.
Mhm.
Can I zoom in? Is that can I zoom in?
I don't know.
So I wanna see, on-
No, you can't on here.
Okay. I think that says ER. Do you know what that
ER.
stands for?
Somebody did tell me, you know. Somebody did
Something, some sort of royal
ER.
credentials, I think.
tell me. ER. No, somebody told me something. Is it ER or EB?
Because I've seen a lot of the water wells that have ER
Oh,
above on
Yeah.
it. So
They all say the same thing. Somebody
well, a
told
lot
me.
of them.
Somebody told me what it meant. Somebody told
We
me.
can look at it after.
Yeah. That's cool. That's a nice.
But this is the
That's in Susku, yeah.
this is Suskil. So in Suskil, it's quite a big village. It's in the
Mhm.
valley, and it
Mhm.
was Turkish Cypriot. I think there maybe were a few Greek Cypriot, but mostly Turkish Cypriot.
In fact, there were a long time ago, but as the years went on, they left.
Mm.
Yeah, and a good way to know whether a village was once Greek is to look out for a a
Church.
Byzantine church. you know.
Yeah.
And there is one somewhere on the outskirts of that village. There is one. We didn't
Oh.
see it. I saw it on the map after, but there is one. Definitely,
Wow.
there is one there. Yeah.
And this image on the left, we have a
That's the
mosque.
mosque,
That's the
yeah.
mosque as well.
Oh, look at this little horse. I mean, I was heartbroken when you sent me that link from the Cyprus Mail.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, we went there and these horses were. I mean, I love horses anyway. They're so majestic and they're so beautiful, and these
Wonderful creatures.
they're just amazing, and it really, really pains me to know. I mean, they looked happy. They were running around,
Yeah.
but at the end, they're starving now. They're starving, and one of them had died. I wonder which one it was. But do you remember one of them was pregnant? I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, I think this was the one that's pregnant. That's what you said.
Yeah, she looked it. Really, really round belly.
For the listeners, the image that we're looking at now, this was from Vreccia, the abandoned village. It was quite unusual for me to see that there were animals. Well, not unusual because, well, the only animals that I find in abandoned houses or villages are farm animals.
Mm.
But there were 2 horses here just living, just chilling in the village, doing their thing.
Apparently there was more, but we didn't see them.
Yeah.
Apparently there's more than 2 horses.
I assume that these were once race horses,
Mhm.
and then they were just
yeah,
left in the village,
yeah.
eating from the trees. We saw them eating from the trees. It was really cool. This one that we're looking at Crystal says that is pregnant. Unfortunately, a few months ago, though, I think it was about a month ago,
Yeah.
someone went and killed a horse in this village.
Killed a horse.
Well, this is what it was speculating in the article.
Okay.
It died, but someone they were investigating it and they were kind of treating it as if someone
Had killed it.
had killed it, but not exactly sure. Maybe the horse died from natural causes, don't know. But it
I
was
thought
still
in-
sad to
In the
to hear.
article, it suggested that they're just starving to death.
Really?
Yeah, that's what I read. That they're getting hungry and they're starving to death. That's what But you read something else where it said that
I'm sure it was. I don't know.
someone's killing
I'll
them.
have to read.
Yeah, we'll do a bit more research.
Actually, you know
on
what?
that.
It was in the comments.
It was in the comments.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
It was in the comments.
It was in the comments that someone's killing them.
Yeah.
How could you though? I don't understand animal cruelty. I don't understand it. Should we move on to the next picture?
Yeah, let's move on. This was
That's
in
in
Sus-
school. Yeah, I
yeah.
recognise that.
I like this because we have the goat just kind of peeking through the doorway, like, "Oh, who are you,
There were quite a few of these goats. So.
intruders?"
And there's a farmer still living there.
Yes.
Did you speak? Because you said that you'd been to that village before. Did you
Yeah.
speak to him the first time?
Didn't speak to no. I never saw. I never saw a farmer
Mhm.
then or now when we
Okay.
went.
I'm wondering if he's a Greek speaker or a Turkish speaker living there now.
Might be
Who
Indian.
knows? Might be Indian.
Yeah.
Oh man, that was the chalkboard.
I didn't really take much notice to this at the beginning, and then you were like, "Oh, you need to check. You need to see the chalkboard in
Yeah.
the old school in Vrecha."
Yeah.
And I was like, "Oh yeah," and then went to it, and yeah, it was pretty interesting to see.
It's graffitied, obviously. There's,
But we can
say
still
somebody's
see
tagged it, but you can still see
the
some.
chalk on the writing on the board,
Yeah.
which is quite interesting.
Where's this?
This is Vrecha when we left. I took this from the car, so
Mhm.
that's the village, and like I was saying, it's on the edge of Baffles Forest when it
Yeah.
begins.
That's when we were leaving, yeah.
Yeah, when
And
we
the
left.
sun,
Yeah.
See, we were in the shade, and then there's
Yeah.
the sun shining on the opposite side of the mountain. So is that Vrecha we can see in the distance
Yep.
there? These little houses here.
That's
yeah.
Vrecha.
Wow. Nice. Should we move on?
Yeah, moving on.
That's the mosque in Vrecha, hey. And the first time, I've been to Vrecha now 3 times. The first 2 times I went, there was a minaret to the mosque. And I've covered it in the video as well. I've spoken about the minaret in the video. But now there's no minaret. And on the other side of the mosque, it's just lying down there in pieces. So somebody's gone and knocked it down.
So you did,
Yeah.
going back to religious buildings in Cyprus, you did say to me that when Cyprus entered the EU, they had to fix up their religious
Yeah.
buildings. So
Yeah.
churches as well as mosques all went through renovation.
Yeah, yeah.
And even before that, Cypriots in the south never went and vandalized mosques, because I don't think that they would have stooped to the level of the
Of what they do to us.
Turkish invaders in the north.
I think
who
a
vandalised
minority.
our
Yeah, I
religious
think a
buildings.
minority of our own do though. I mean, as it's
look,
been shown. But again, yeah, I do think that
You think-
there is a minority. But I do
Yeah.
think anything that has been that they have done is a knee-jerk reaction to what has been done to them.
Yeah.
You know, and so somebody has said, well, they've gone and they've destroyed all of my churches, the church in the village which my Bapu used to pray in, and all of this. I'm going to go and knock down their minaret. That's basically what's happened.
It's a domino effect.
And it's a bit like what Eorga did in the Dokhny massacre. You know, they thought, well,
Was this Ayoga A?
Vida. This
So
was
okay,
after
this
the
was not the original Ayoga. This was
Eorga Vida. Sorry, I should be more specific. Hey?
the fascist from Greece. Yeah.
So Eorga Vida with the Dokhny massacre, that was a knee-jerk reaction to everything.
Yeah.
Not to justify it, but the Turkish-speaking Cypriots need to understand that anything that has happened to them, any mosque that has been defaced, or
I think that's just
Go-
as a reaction.
I mean, the Greeks have suffered hundreds and hundreds of years under the Turks.
Not that our pain is more than their pain. We all have pain, but
I would say ours is more than theirs, because they are completely unaware of their own wrongdoings, and that frustrates me so much. You know, when I can go and have a conversation with a Turkish-speaking Cypriot, and there's
that's true.
like this Russian guy who I spoke to who said, "Oh no, the Turkish military must stay because because of the Dochny massacre. I just want to turn around and say, oh, come on, man, you know, wake up.
It's very
wake
easy.
up.
Another thing is, it's very easy for people to, like a third party, to look at the Cyprus situation and just have
Not
all
have
these,
a clue.
not have a clue, and have all these strong opinions of being
Yeah.
like, oh, this is how it is, and
That's the problem. Yeah, people they
and
don't.
it's frustrating.
They don't
you
look
know?
for their own information. They just take the information that's presented before them. You know. Where's this?
This was when we stopped and got out the car, took a photo of the valley, and then another car came, and you were like, oh, gotta come
Oh, we
back
had to
in.
go.
Yeah,
Was this before we got to Vreccia?
yeah.
Yeah, and that car was behind us,
Mm.
and we left. And we thought, we thought we were heading into Vreccia here, but then started that awful but adventurous drive,
Yeah.
you know, into. Wow. Where is this?
So these are a couple general photos of my photography, just some of the ones that I selected that I like. This is, I took this a few years ago, 2017, on the Green Line, and someone went and installed an art installation.
Mm-hmm.
This was not from the war. Someone went, probably recently when I had went, and just put this statue there. Don't know what it is.
It looks like Panagia or
I
something.
was just going to say,
Yeah.
some people that have seen this photo have interpreted it as being the Virgin Mary,
Yeah.
but I know, who
Mm.
knows, but
And where was that, did you say?
it was on the Green Line.
In the Green Line, whereabouts? In Lefkosia?
Yeah, next.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's still there, but yeah,
How long ago?
2017.
Could still be there. It might look a bit different now,
Mm.
like dustier. And these old cars? Where'd you take these?
This is, I don't want to give a specific location,
Okay.
but this is.
In the buffer zone?
You know what? I'm not going to say. I'm not going to
Okay.
say exactly, because when I have mentioned the location, I mentioned the location of this place
Before,
on my website,
Uh-huh.
and a famous photographer from Europe wanted to visit Cyprus
Uh-huh.
and go urban exploring. He found the location of this place
Via you.
through me,
Yeah.
and he went there illegally,
Uh-huh.
and you know, it's just not a very.
Wow, yeah.
But this no one knows about this place. It's very private. I only went because I got permission,
Mm-hmm.
and it took me 6 months to arrange. And there's over 500 abandoned vehicles,
Wow.
all before the war. I'll give a
Wow.
bit of history. When the war happened, the people of the area fled,
Mm-hmm.
and when they fled, they left their cars.
Yeah.
And all these cars were taken and put in a space that was safe, and they were told, well, you know, when we come back, we'll return and get our cars again. They never returned, and these have just been lying around.
So they parked them there thinking after the war we'll come and pick them up.
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
So
Wow. This Mini, there's a Beetle,
there's a Volvo,
a
there was
Land Rover.
BMW.
What is this car? This one in the middle.
I don't know. I'm not good with cars, to be honest.
Yeah.
I mean, I love antique cars, but
Yeah.
yeah.
And where is this?
So this is opposite Gerridis Museum in Larnaca.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know which building I'm talking about?
The Gerridis Museum. It's somewhere in the town centre, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's right next to, I don't know, opposite Bank of Cyprus. Actually, no, it was, I think, maybe Bank of Cyprus. Anyway, this building, I was one of the best explorers ever, and I went with a friend of mine. This was 2016. This building was, it wasn't a house, but it was massive. Inside there were about 4 or 5 fireplaces.
Mm-hmm.
Half the floor of the upstairs was collapsed. There was on the stairway going upstairs, there was a beautiful wooden staircase, and there was a carpet on the stairs. There was still had the curtains. Had all these oriental rugs inside.
Yeah.
Took some great photos. Really interesting place. It was just quite a grand Cypriot building, very old. And I have to say, I'm really happy with this. But they actually fixed up this building recently, and they've just recently opened it up. And I went to visit this place the other week when he'd fixed it, and I was amazed by how well they did.
It's all been done up now. This building.
All done up. Yeah. All done up.
Okay.
It's as good as new. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Maybe that's why I don't recognize it.
Yeah.
But you mean
this was, sorry, I have to mention, this was the back of the building. The front is
okay.
The road is
okay.
on the front of the building. This is where we're looking at the behind.
Yeah.
So next photo. So this was in Nicosia. I was exploring. There is a Swedish neighborhood in the old town of Nicosia, on the Green Line almost, and there were a couple of abandoned buildings, houses, and I went into one of the houses, and I was with a friend of mine who's an estate agent, and taking some photos. I found some really beautiful. I found this dressing table, and there was this old cupboard. I looked inside the drawer of the old cupboard, and there were passports, ID cards. They're British and Australian, and they're dated from the 1930s, 40s, and 50s, I think. That's what it says. It says one says 50, another one says 47, 46.
It says Bistobidigoni years, so it's like a health certificate.
Okay, yeah, that's a health certificate.
It's like a what is it? It's a book explaining what, like your health. You've had your doctor's checkups on these dates, or what, or your vaccinations.
The other ones, that one on top with the crest, that looks to be that must be a passport, right?
You can definitely read the word Cyprus on here.
But this was really cool. Like, this is probably the best find I've ever found. I mean, look, guys, I never take items.
You didn't touch any of it. You just left it.
I'll tell you what. I never take whenever I've gone abandoned exploring. I've never taken items from buildings. Yeah. The only thing I take is pictures. Pictures I take. All the places that I go to have usually been looted or vandalized. These, I thought, I got to do something with these. The estate agent I was with, Alex, he took them and he donated them to a museum in Nicosia. So I kind of saved these. I'm glad I opened up that drawer and found these. And now they're being looked after.
Wow, look, and there's a cassette there. There's 2 cassettes even.
Oh, there were loads of cassettes. There were loads of cassettes. I could just, God knows what's on them, but.
And you can't tell us where this was either, no?
Wow, it was in a Swedish neighborhood I actually don't remember exactly, but it's just in the old town of Nicosia.
Okay, I never knew there was a Swedish neighborhood in Nicosia. Yeah.
So this was one of the first abandoned trips I've ever done. I was 15 years old, and this was in the village of Ayos Sozomenos, who is the saint of healing. And there's there's quite a few pages missing about this saint from the Bible. So Ayos Sozomenos was a village that had Greek Cypriots and Turkish Cypriots, and it was abandoned in the war. This falls onto the Nicosia district. It's basically in the middle of nowhere in barren land. It's like looks like Texas. I don't know. And there's only 2 churches there now. One is. It's got arches, and everyone recognizes this church in Ayos Sozomenos. But this one, the picture that we're looking at now, is in the cave in in the cliff at the village.
Right, okay.
And this is the cave where the saint
the saint would have lived, yeah.
and where he was buried.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, you can see that these icons, they're ancient icons. I believe they're Byzantine.
They look like they're Byzantine to
Yeah.
me. Yeah, I mean
they're
and
very
I've heard
old.
stories before of how even from the first Ottoman landings of the 1500s that they used to do things like that, scratch out the saints' faces, scratch out their eyes.
I think I was told that this was maybe when the Turks invaded.
Was it? Yeah.
They desecrated these icons.
Yeah.
I'm not sure.
There's I've wanted to go to the monastery in Galobanayodi because they've got icons where my cousin went there and I wanted to go and see for myself, but they've got icons with eyes scratched out from the first Ottoman landings into the 1500s. Yeah.
Did I mention that there's pages missing from the Bible about this saint?
Really?
I think I was gonna say it before.
In that Bible on the table there? Or?
No, just generally the Bible.
Really? Okay.
This is what I've heard: is there's information that's not in there about this saint, but he's the saint of healing. And there is a documentary about this village. It was a big village. A documentary on YouTube from the 80s talking about people's experiences.
Yeah.
What happened, the troubles in the 60s. Great place to visit. And I've heard a couple of rumours that there's apparently a ghost there. That there's this old woman that appears like a spirit. Like, I don't know, don't know if you believe in ghosts.
I do, yeah, of course I do.
But
I mean, if what is a ghost? I mean, I definitely believe the soul lives on longer than after the body dies. I definitely believe that.
I believe
absolutely.
That.
You know.
I mean, when I go into these places that have been abandoned, I don't expect to see ghosts. I go in there with, I just want to take photos. I admire where I am, appreciate where I am. I don't really look like, oh, there must be ghosts here and I can feel it. Some places I go to where I'm like, I don't really feel anything, but there's other places that I go to where I have felt the strong energy. There's no denying that.
Yeah.
Like an energy exists in you have environment, atmosphere.
Yeah.
And yeah, some places you get good energy, you get a bad energy. But next photo. This I took recently. This is one of my favourite buildings in Nicosia. Actually, all favourite buildings I've ever explored. I like it because the cat's just chilling on the window.
Yeah.
But this is a pretty big staircase.
Is it a house?
Yeah, I assume it is a house. It was a house. This is on the Green Line, and what I like about this place is that I've been visiting it often since I was 15. I went to Nicosia for the first time with my friends to explore this place. Actually, no, I found it, when I just randomly. And what's interesting is that when I first went, behind this building, obviously with it being on the Green Line, I don't know if people have seen what the buildings look like in Nicosia and in the buffer zone, but they're all connected, they're all joined up together.
Yeah.
So this building was joined up with other buildings, and there were not even any doors, but was going through these archways through the doors, and there was I found myself in one building and then another building and another building. They're all just joined up together, but the only reason I went through all these buildings is that in the walls connecting two buildings together is that there was a hole in them, and that was when the war happened, soldiers could transport through the walls and go to building to building, when they were defending Nicosia. And there were a few bunkers I found with sandbags, stuff like that. There was actually paintings on the wall of soldiers, of the military crests as well, and that's where the soldiers fought. but since the first time they actually bought it up and you can't go. But yeah, I couldn't believe like that this was just here. Like it was really easy to go into the buffer zone.
But not anymore.
Not anymore, but yeah, I managed to. I mean, it was just such a large area to explore.
Yeah.
Next photo. So this is the Green Line.
Yeah, look at these
There is
sandbags there.
a woman sitting, having her morning coffee.
Do you know her?
Don't know her.
Does she know you took a picture of her?
No. She doesn't know. She's famous now. But it was just like a nice little street
cool,
scene that I caught.
I like
just
it.
natural.
I like that she's wearing just a red dress, you know,
Yeah.
drinking her morning coffee. It's something very fitting about that.
Yeah.
So, yeah. And the sandbags,
See,
you know.
for people for seeing this for the first time, it's like kind of shocking. Like, oh, you know, there's this border that goes all throughout Cyprus with military armies operating on these borders. You know, they got on the other side of the border, you got Turkish troops. Then in the middle, you've got the United Nations, and then on this side, we're looking at in the south, you've got Greek soldiers or Cypriot soldiers. And it's kind of shocking, but for the people of Nicosia, this is just normal everyday life. They just get on with it. So I like the contrast.
Yeah,
And you can see the barbed wire on top of the sandbags, which is really rusty now.
It's I think it just one simple. It says so much, and it says how normal it's become. You know, the status quo. How just sitting here, chilling, drinking my coffee, while there's Turkish soldiers just at the other side of these sandbags.
Yeah.
And it's become normal now, you know.
Yeah. This again was on the Green Line. Actually, no, technically in the buffer zone, but this was on the way to Ledra Palace. There's a road that you can go through to get to Ledra Palace, and opposite there is the Home for Corporation. It's a cafe where Cypriots, Turkish Cypriots and Greek Cypriots get together and just celebrate being Cypriot. You know, they've got workshops there. They have all sorts of art, and a lot of the events and things come from the United Nations in an effort to move forward, you know, with communities against the division. But this house was in that area, and I really like it. I like the staircase. I call it Stairway to Heaven.
Yeah, because it doesn't lead to a floor, it's just going.
Yeah.
And the floor's fallen, obviously, already.
Next photo. So this
How did you manage to get yourself a tour of the airport?
So this is the inside the Nicosia airport.
Are the lights on?
So this is I was going to say, everyone always asks this. Those are not lights.
They're not. They're skylights.
This is natural light from the sky.
Yeah.
So the Nicosia airport was built, I think, in the early 60s. I'm not sure, and it was given an award for being one of the best designs in Europe for an airport.
Yeah.
It was really modern for the time, and I went to Nicosia Airport in 2017. When I went before the States, the United Nations were doing tours, but it was very, very hard to do a tour, to get accepted and, you know, do all the procedures to go there. For those who don't know, Nicosia Airport falls under the buffer zone. Falls within the buffer zone.
Yeah.
And since the war, they have just been patrolling the area. They patrol the airport. They do use the runway for their helicopters, but that's about it. Everything inside looks like it's been looted.
Have you seen Any videos? People have gone there. They've snuck in.
I've
yeah.
yeah.
Was it a group of German? Were they German? These
It,
boys.
so they were from
and then
the
the UN
Netherlands.
truck. Yeah, were they
Yeah,
Dutch?
This is the same guy I was telling you that found the place,
Ah, right.
the cars.
Okay, yeah.
This is the same guy.
hmm
Yeah, no. He tripped a wire when he went.
Is that what it was? There was a tripwire.
Yeah. There was sensors. They.
I saw it in the comments. No,
Yeah.
you tripped a tripwire, and that's why they were there checking.
Yeah, they knew someone was
there.
inside, but
Yeah.
yeah.
And then they stayed there till morning. Hey.
No, I don't think so.
No?
I'm not sure.
Okay. I mean, the boys were in the
Maybe
building
they did,
until
maybe they
morning,
did.
overnight. I'm not sure.
I just want to give a bit of a
Yeah,
history
go on. Go.
about this, because not a lot of people know about the history of the airport, and it's very significant in the war. So basically, the most brutal battles that took place throughout the entire war was at the Nicosia airport.
Mhm.
And what happened was the Greeks took hold of the airport. Well, the Cypriots took
Yeah.
hold, and they were defending it
Yeah.
against the
Turks.
invading Turks.
Yeah.
Greece sent special forces over to Cyprus. They sent a couple aircraft to land at the airport and assist the Cypriots in defending against the Turks. And the Cypriots, for some reason, were not told
That they were coming.
that the Greeks were coming. And when the Greeks came, the Cypriots shot at a Greek plane,
Mhm.
thinking it was Turkish,
Mhm.
understandably, and then it crashed. And in the airfield, there is a crashed Greek military aircraft there.
Mhm.
And
This was used as an excuse as well as to why Greece didn't fulfill their guarantor obligations.
yeah.
They say, well, we sent a plane over and you shot it down. So I wonder if they were, if the Cypriot military were deliberately not informed that they were arriving, you know. I really wonder that. It's to what a stupid mistake to make, you know.
Yeah.
And then that's it. They basically turned around and said, well, you know, you shot one of our planes down, and
To give
And
a
the-
little bit. Sorry.
yeah, go on.
To give a bit more background of,
Yeah.
because there's so much to say about this.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
so
yeah,
significant.
Yeah,
And all this information I'm telling you guys is from the United Nations soldier that I was with. He's the man, the person that took me around to the airport.
yeah.
He gave me the tour. He gave me the history and told me, answered all my questions. Very informative. And he was saying, he said that the Greeks came. They had more than one plane, so some did land, and they did come and help the Cypriots fight against the Turks, and they stopped the Turks from three different waves.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they defended it for quite a while.
The Turks advanced further than the airport, more down south,
Mhm.
but the area of the airport they couldn't get because
yeah.
it was a team of commandos. I'm not exactly sure, but they defended it really well, and it was just so brutal. There were massive fires when Turkish airplanes came to shoot at the soldiers on the runway. The sparks hit the tarmac and it created fire. The surrounding area was all wheat, like fields. There were massive fires. There were
fires, yeah.
many soldiers burnt alive.
In that summer heat as well, man.
Summer heat, yeah. And this is what I'm going to tell you now. People don't know about this, and for anyone watching the podcast, I'd be interested to know if you know any information about this. And this is what I was told by the UN soldier that I was with, is that you'd be thinking that because at the time the UN did have presence on the island,
yeah,
and they should have defended it. They should have defended the airport because they were based close by.
The Turks should have defended it before the Cypriots got there, you mean?
Sorry, no, the UN.
Ah, the UN, sorry.
Yeah, and when the Turks invaded, the UN soldiers got ready to defend as well, and they got all ready, and they got a call high up saying, "Stand down, you're not going to do anything."
That's true, yeah.
And there's a watchtower next to the airport, a UN watchtower that had the UN flag, where the UN were inside, and they had binoculars just watching the Turks invade, and they did nothing. And
Exactly.
they just let the Turks come through.
It's true, yeah.
And that was that. And many people ask, well, why? Why didn't? What was this command to stand down? Why didn't they defend? And a second, I heard about this again when a friend of mine met. This was in the UK. He became friends with someone who was high up in the British military that was at the airport at the time, who was he was an officer. He had some sort of high-ranking position, and he said the same thing, that officer in the British military, because the British were there as well. And when the Turks invaded, the same thing happened. This person that was there said that the UN had to stand down.
That's true, yeah.
They didn't do anything to help.
There's loads of reports about that. Then the English military as well. Just let them fight.
Yeah.
And so the situation which we have today with Cyprus still being divided, it was planned to be that way from a long time before it even happened, and
Perhaps,
the British helped. The British helped. I mean, have you seen these leaked these proposals that the British drew up as to how the island should be divided? There are some leaked papers and all of that. So they're planning it before even the 60s, before even the Republic, before independence.
To be honest, I haven't done much research into the British involvement.
Yeah.
The theories of people saying that they had something to do with the invasion, that they had it pre-planned.
Yeah,
I've heard it.
Yeah.
I've heard this many times.
Yeah.
I do need to look into it more.
Yeah. But I think what you just said about how the UN backed off, and don't forget the UK was also a guarantor, So Greece had a plane shot down. Elvic were here, the Elvic was they were here. They fought valiantly, apparently, by what I've read, and but Greece sent over one plane got shot down. So Greece didn't really fulfil their guarantor obligations, and England, the UK certainly didn't. Nothing at all. They just said, yeah, go ahead, let's go on. And obviously, the Turks, they call it an intervention, yeah? They call it an intervention.
Oh, yeah.
We call it an invasion. We'll go into that maybe if we've got a little bit of time. Let's move on to the next picture.
This is the buffer zone in Nicosia. We can see the Girinia Mountains in the background. Yeah. And there's a Turkish military post where you can see, got the flags, the Turkish flag, and also the Turkish Republic of Northern Cyprus. Yeah,
the pseudo-state flag. Yeah,
exactly.
Picture, you can see the mosque tipping. The tip of the mosque there as well. The
minaret. Yeah. I like this photo. Just all these buildings. I mean, the whole area. Like this is the buffer zone. So it's just long straight area cut through Cyprus. You got so many buildings in this area that's abandoned. No man's land. No one can go to it. Only the United Nations, and they just patrol the area to make sure no one's illegally crossing. But all these buildings just there left to rot.
It's those flags, man. Those flags that really
in your face.
And that is the whole point. They don't want to have to rely on wind for their flags to be erect, for no sort of better word, to be, and it's basically rubbing salt in it. These are our flags. Look at them. They've even plastered it on the side of Bendadaktilo, you know.
Yeah. You can see that flag from space.
When it comes to you know, we spoke about moving forward and a solution. How can you move on and find a solution with that mentality? With that mentality.
This is I've heard this from, you know, people that were there, but apparently where the flag is on the mountain, that underneath the flag there's a massive mass grave and a lot of missing people.
Wouldn't surprise me.
But I'm not sure about that.
And they built the flag on top of there.
So no one goes digging.
You see that? No, I don't think it is so that no one goes digging. I think it's just because that is their mentality. It's a nationalist thing to do.
Yeah.
And you know, and how can we have a solution with this kind of nationalism? It's ridiculous. You know, so it's a statement. That is a statement that they've made. If it's true, and you say you've got it from a reliable source, if they use that area as a mass grave and then plastered a Turkish flag over it, it's a statement. That's what they're making. They're making some sort of statement, and not a very nice statement either. You know.
See, this information I've heard about this a couple of times, and this is from people that were there.
Yeah.
And people that, you know, who knew people that were there.
Yeah.
Until, you know, one day we go and actually dig.
We're never going to know.
We'll never know for sure, but hey.
We'll never know. And they light it up at night, man. Come on.
And we pay for the electric.
And we pay for the electricity. Yeah. Oh, that's the last photo. So, we've seen the photos and
I think they're amazing, mate, if you ask
me. There's some good pictures there, man. Thanks for sharing them with us.
I mean, for anyone who's interested, I've got I'm trying to get some social media at the moment. I've got a couple pages that I want to boost up and get more of my photos out there. Andrew Avraam Photography. Type that in, you'll find my Flickr website, my Flickr account on that website. I've got all my photos on there. I've got quite a few photos that I've taken recently that I want to add as well, so I'm going to be adding more. And yeah.
You got your Flickr account. We'll put a link to your Flickr account in the description of the video.
But if anyone that does want to find the look more at the photos, it's always going to be Andrew Avraam Photography on any website or page.
Alright, so
for the photos, I like abandoned places. And there's a whole history behind, like, when I go into an abandoned building, like, you know, people ask me, like, why was it abandoned?
Yeah.
And, like, I never know what to say.
You never know the answer.
Yeah. And
well, you know why these were abandoned.
I know why these were abandoned, but there's so many other buildings, you know, separate to the war that have been abandoned, which is mysterious. You know, there's a bit of mystery to it.
Yeah. Oh yeah, there's houses in Chirogidia up the road which have been
yeah. But I don't know. Yeah.
What about as a kid though? You know, as a kid, what? Because it's something that's interested me, because my perception has really changed how I view the Cyprus issue. You know, as a kid, I used to ask questions. My dad never used to answer them. My mum didn't really know anything. She was born in the UK. My dad, you could tell it was like a touchy subject for him, you know. I remember my yaya crying every time you mentioned the village. She would just cry. And when I went to the village and I told you about my great Bapu's pomegranate tree, I picked a couple of pomegranates from the tree and I took them to her, all happy, like, yeah, I brought you some pomegranates from your pomegranate tree. She just burst into tears. She burst into tears and just sort of threw her hand like that, you know, threw her hand sort of like that, and she covered her face. I could just see her doing it now, you know. She just burst into tears. So I mean, but you see, the thing is, I've always been very much you know, I've always wanted to keep an open mind, and you know, having been born in the UK, where you know at school you kind of learn of all the UK's triumphs, and you learn of all their accomplishments and how they colonised half the world, Australia, and all of this, but they never mention the genocides. And they never mention the bad things that they've committed. And obviously, having later, I went to
history is written by the victors. You know?
Yeah, exactly. And they're free to miss out whatever bits of history they choose. So I've always been aware of that. And I've always kept an open mind when it comes to, before I knew much about Cyprus problem, I've always thought, well, just because you know, we're not always the good guys. We're not always on the good team. Just because I am me, it doesn't necessarily mean I'm on the good team. You know, maybe we did something, I didn't know anything better. I kept an open mind. You know, maybe we deserved it. But I've done my research and I've learned. And I'd say, you know, as a child, you know, that is speaking about Cyprus, I mean, there was always that overwhelming sadness which you felt from aunties, uncles, and those who lived through it, who abandoned their homes, but I didn't really have like a full opinion on what should happen and how it happened. Whereas now I'd say I'm much, you know, I've gone out and I've searched for answers.
That's good.
And I don't only just, and I think it's important that we don't just take the information that's presented before us. I mean, man, you should see on.
There's still new information coming out as well.
Yeah.
You know.
I made a video about the bathtub murders. I told you that one already, but I made another video as well about another propaganda video which I found on online, and in fact there is a whole video about the bathtub murders. There's a whole video about it which the Turks have produced, and there's another video about the invasion as well which paints the Turks as heroes. So I think we must also gain an understanding of the opposition.
Yeah.
And I think I'm doing quite a good job at doing that. You know, not just the opposition as in the military or the Turkish government, but the people, and it's people's opinions which are much more important, I think.
You mean the people who are
us, me, you, the Turkish-speaking Cypriots, the people, the public. I believe, because I think any solution is in our hands. It's down to us. We supposedly live in a democracy.
Yeah.
So if the whole population of Cyprus unites and demands we want the Turkish military to leave, that would put tremendous pressure on them to do so. But using
it's not going to happen.
But yeah, it's very difficult. Using their propaganda, they have convinced the Turkish-speaking Cypriots, a lot of them, that Turkey is needed in Cyprus, and this is what they're doing. You know, this is what they do. And there are other videos if anybody would like. You know, I've made a video on the bathtub murders. I've made a couple of videos analysing Turkish propaganda, and it really does help us understand how we are perceived, you know, and it's important to understand that as well.
You know, also interestingly, I've seen Turkish Cypriots who have called out this propaganda in Turkey.
Oh yeah.
I've seen it. So, like, it's not just people. It's not just Greek Cypriots, but Turkish Cypriots see through all the crap that they're putting out there.
They do, yeah.
I know
some of them do.
A person who I've known for many years, Veli Kurla, he's Turkish Cypriot. He's got the Veli Kurla podcast, and I was looking through his social media, and he produces a lot of really interesting content about what the Turks have done, the harm that they've done to the Greeks, the Greek Cypriots, to the Turkish Cypriots, and all the propaganda. He's put out a lot of videos just calling them out, and I really appreciate that.
Yeah. It's
you
good.
know.
Yeah, there are some of them out there. There's a what is it? Ahmed Shavit. He's another one. Chanel event we mentioned earlier. So there are, but you know, this is another thing as well. You know, there are Turkish-speaking Cypriots out there who are calling out Turkey for their atrocities, and they are sort of exposing them.
I can appreciate that.
And I do appreciate that, but but then also, what we have to ask ourselves, what else needs to be done? Well, we're here exposing it. We're telling the truth. Some of their own are telling the truth. When are they gonna acknowledge the truth? And start acting in a different way. Start working towards some sort of reconciliation. But at the moment, Cyprus is kind of frozen in time. It's not moving on, unfortunately.
Let's see what happens. But it's important that people do talk about their history, even if it's a history that people have suffered.
Mm-hmm.
It's a tragic history.
Yeah.
Especially recent times.
Yeah. Very sad.
It is very sad, but we need to talk about it.
And refugees are still being created now all over the world. I mean, the world is at war, and then people. I keep asking people, when do you think World War III is going to kick off? But really, I should be asking, when do you think it's going to be declared? Because the world is at war. There's war in Syria. There's war in Yemen. We don't. It's not on our mainstream media.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a lot of bad stuff going on, and the media has a lot of influence, a lot of power, because the media decides what we think.
Oh yeah, for sure.
They decide what we think about.
Of course.
They decide what we think about. So I think hopefully by doing this, Cyprus Without Borders, doing these podcasts, we can sort of encourage to think outside the box, as I think you and I are. I don't read newspapers.
No, I don't.
I don't read magazines. I don't watch the TV.
I read articles. Okay, I don't.
Yeah.
I read some articles.
Yeah, some
on social media.
Yeah.
Like I said, from the left and the right.
Yeah.
But
to understand both sides as well.
I don't read it, and I'm like, oh, they've said this, so this is the concrete truth of whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But see, I understand, like you were saying with your grandmother, it's very hard for her to.
Yeah, bless her. God rest her soul.
To talk about.
She spoke very proudly. She spoke very proudly of the village. It wasn't a village. Gomupoli. What's a Gomupoli? It's like an up and coming city. She's how she used to talk about it, And I don't know if you know much about the people from Lisi.
No.
But they are known in Cyprus as being very proud, super proud. In fact, talk to other people and get other people's opinions on the people of Lisi. They're often hated as well.
Really?
Yeah, they're often hated. They've been called not so much high nose, but tight-fisted, money.
Okay.
Very tight fit. And one nickname I've heard is they're the Jews of Cyprus, because they're super proud and they're super super tight. Apparently, well, we're picking on stereotypes here, But apparently, this has been. I've heard that. I mean, somebody in a pub said to me, there's Lishotes. I think I was talking about Miligis. I was talking about going to Miligis for food, and he went off on one. I don't like them, the Jews of Cyprus. I was like, well, actually, I'm a quarter Lishodi myself. I said to him, because my yaya, when it comes to talking about Lisi, I told you my Bapu was the Gafeji. He was actually from Yalusa, but he married my yaya Maria and moved to, which was completely unheard of back then, but for a woman from Lisi to marry someone from outside her own village, it was very, very, and this is why from Lisi.
So you're not allowed to, like, it's
frowned upon.
That's kind of funny, because I've got a funny story. I mean, my family, we've always been from Aradipur, and I have an uncle who, when he was in the army in the 70s, he was staying in a village like in the middle of nowhere in Bafo, like in the mountains, and he used to visit this village, and he met this woman and had a bit of a thing, and they were dating, and then the family just assumed that they're gonna get married, and they kind of like I don't want to say kidnapped him, but they were like, you're gonna get married. You know, what do you mean you're gonna what? You know, this your life is here now.
Yeah.
And his dad and his uncles went from Aradipo all the way to Belfast to go get him.
Really, yeah?
Yeah.
Or to rescue him?
Yeah, to rescue him from yeah.
Oh,
Funny.
wow. So they're from Aradipo, your family?
Yeah,
All
from
of them,
Aradipo.
yeah.
I mean, I love family history. I love
Yeah.
asking my grandparents about
Yeah.
all these stories.
Mm-hmm.
I've got, apart from Aleppo, I've got I think I had a great grandmother who was from Smyrni,
Mm-hmm.
which was
Really, yeah.
in now in
Modern day Turkey,
modern
yeah.
day Turkey.
They call it Izmir now.
Izmir, yeah.
And that was where, after World War One, the Greeks tried to. I have to check this and make sure it's true. I'm pretty sure it was after World War One. Yeah, it was just over 100 years ago, where the Greek military thought that they could take back Anatolia. You know, because Turkey was once all Greek as well. You know, it was Anatolia. It was all part of Anatolia until the Ottoman Empire came along, and you know, and they had the idea of taking back. I don't know if they wanted to take back all of Anatolia, but they marched to Ankara. Turkey had lost the war, and they were going to march to Ankara to take back. Zmirin is an ancient Greek city. You know, Constantinople is an ancient Greek city. And they were and that was what caused that was what sparked the Turks to. I mean, they set fire to Smyrni, and the Greeks were jumping in the sea, swimming to the islands to save their own lives. You know, people got killed, and then that's a part of history which the Turks don't talk about either. In fact, I've even seen. At a football match, there was a football match with a Greek team versus a Turkish team in the Europa League, Champions League, what was it? And there was a banner there, "Can you swim?" It's something which they laugh about still to this day.
Yeah.
We threw you in the sea. We threw you in the sea. You had to swim.
That's the mentality.
That's the mentality
exists.
we're up against.
Yeah.
And this is why, this is why I think I've been accused of hate speech by some people of the Unite Cyprus Now movement. But it's not hate speech, it's fact. This is the mentality. We saw the flags on the flags which don't require wind. They will always be there on display. This is the mentality as Cypriots or as Greeks that we're up against. And we are expected to accept Turkey as a guarantor for the security of our future, of our island. The Annan Plan included Turkish guarantees, with no time frame as to when they would pull out. It was just supposedly said, we'll pull out in 20 years, but it wasn't even offered in writing. There are so many things wrong with the Annan Plan, and rejecting the Annan Plan made the Greek-speaking Cypriots look very, very bad on the international stage.
Yeah, it did.
Because as far as everybody around the world is concerned, as far as everybody else around the world is concerned, well, you rejected the solution. The Turkish-speaking Cypriots, they were in favour of the solution. You voted against it, and that made us look terrible. But when you look at the fine print,
the Turks had much more benefits.
Much more.
And that's why we rejected it. It's not that we don't want. It's not that we don't want.
It's not the only reason, Andrew. It's not about they had more benefits than us. It basically, effectively, we were asked to surrender Cyprus to Turkey.
Yeah.
That's basically, in effect, what the Annan Plan was. Because with the Annan Plan, being in the European Union, Cyprus were about to join the European Union.
Yeah.
Joining the European Union, you have certain European Union defence rights. So now we have rights where any future conflicts, we have the European Union to protect us. By agreeing to the Annan Plan, we were surrendering those European Union rights and handing them all over to Turkey. So all of these people out there who go around saying, oh, you rejected it. All these Turks who go around saying, you don't want a solution, you rejected it. No, it's crap. We want a solution which works for everyone and not one which surrenders and signs over Cyprus to Turkey. Because in effect, that's what the Annan Plan was. The Turkish-speaking Cypriots would have been allowed to return to their properties the very next day. Settlers would have been allowed to have stayed in the homes which Greek people's homes, which they've been living in, stolen properties. There was no agreement to send any of these settlers back, and there was no time scale as to when the refugees, the Greek-speaking refugees, were allowed to return to their homes.
Yeah.
So it's more than just about it was more beneficial for them than it is for us. It's that, staying the way we are now, is more beneficial for us than signing over the island, because effectively that's what we would have done. It was signing over all of Cyprus to Turkey. No guarantor rights to Greece, no guarantor rights for British, which have proved useless anyway. Security, Cyprus's defence was the responsibility of Turkey and Turkey only. This is why, and I've got a bunch of I've got relatives. I come from mostly a left-wing background, and I'm mostly left-wing myself, but I'm not stupid, And I've got relatives who still to this day, like, that was our only chance. Oh, we let it go. That was our chance. We should have accepted the Annan Plan.
You
get
can't,
that idea out of your head right now.
You can't please everyone. That's what it is.
It's not. It's because they have been reading too much crap from Agel, from their newspapers, which are telling them we should have accepted it. So there's brainwashing going on. But accepting the Annan Plan would have been even more of a bigger disaster than the 1974 Turkish invasions. Yeah. And before we've got to wrap up, I know, because it's curfew, and Andrew's got to get home before curfew. There's another thing that I did want to talk about as well, was just quickly touch upon it, because the Turks call 1974 an intervention.
Peacekeeping operation,
an intervention, whatever. Yeah. We call it an invasion. But, and I've sort of looked at why they can call it that. I've looked at how and tried to understand how. But the legality of it is that it is an invasion because, according to the constitution, where Turkey was to provide guarantor rights, was to provide guarantors for the security of Cyprus, Turkey, as a guarantor, Turkeys who claim they were exercising their guarantor rights, the guarantors were supposed to restore the constitution should be required. But Turkey invaded, but they did not restore the constitution. They've kept Cyprus divided. They've imported settlers. So their intention wasn't a peacekeeping mission. It was a land grab and an invasion. And therefore, if anybody is watching this who is unsure about whether it's an invasion or an intervention, it's an invasion, and I've given you the reasons why it was an invasion. Because Turkey did not restore the constitution. They did not restore peace. They came, they grabbed land, they divided the island, they built mosques, they raped children, they cut off people's heads. This is what they did. That is not a peacekeeping operation. That is an invasion.
No, I agree.
So we've got to start wrapping. Is there anything else you want to say before you have to go? What else can...
Well, we obviously want, like we have a vision of, there being a solution hopefully one day. And, I'm optimistic and positive about hopefully one day. Realistically, looking at the way things are now, I'm just trying to think on a good note, but
I know how. I think Cyprus will be free from Turkish occupation. It will happen.
Yeah.
In fact, I mean, when I say I
Maybe
think,
in our
I'm sort
lifetime,
of,
I don't know.
I think in our lifetime.
Yeah.
But it's not going to be because Turkey's going to nicely just leave and give it back.
Oh yeah.
I think there's going to be big trouble before we get to get our
Mhm.
properties back. I think that there's going to be a huge... I mean, we are building up to, I think, a huge conflict, a huge world
Mhm.
conflict.
I agree.
And I think Turkey's going to be on the losing side.
Yeah.
Eventually,
This
they
stuff.
will lose. And I
this-
think that is how
This.
we're going to...
I mean, I don't know if people believe in any of the prophecies from the
From Baisios.
from Isos, but it seems like we're heading that way. Like there's been quite a few events that have taken place that is scarily similar
Yeah.
to what Isos and other saints have said.
Well, I spoke
Whether
to...
it happens, I don't know. In the exact way that they've said it's going to happen. If it doesn't, I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, who knows?
Right. Do you know Bader Bangradios?
No.
Okay. Anyway, he was actually voted to be the Mitropoliti, like of Cyprus, the leader of our church over here, back in '96. And I remember there were riots in the street because...
Oh, you told me this.
Yeah, I told you about him. Anyway.
They were spreading fake news.
Yeah, about him.
Yeah.
You know, they accused him of being homosexual, and this is why he can't be the leader of the church and all this. And all. But anyway, all that aside,
Politics.
he said I spoke to him about Baisios's prophecies, and he doesn't believe in them.
He doesn't believe
No,
in them.
he doesn't believe.
Yeah, I think it's just... I don't know. I kind of want to believe in them.
Yeah,
But
he doesn't believe.
look...
in them. And
I
there
don't
was
know.
another chap there who was talking to him, and he said, no, Baisios was not a prophet. He said. So, but I mean, but I think that there will be... I mean, he also predicted we would get back Constantinople, didn't he? That Constantinople would also fall back into Orthodox Christian hands. Because I think he was also talking about the Russians being involved somewhere there as well. But I mean, I have heard it, but again, I just think that Cyprus will be free, but we've got a
long
while
way
to go,
Yeah.
and also some difficult times ahead of us, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, man.
I just want to make clear that we are not against Turkish people. We're against the people who have a threatening mentality, a mentality that sets us back, that
That's what I'm
stops us
against.
from proceeding forward.
Yeah.
And especially the government and the military have has that mentality, and they're the ones that produce propaganda and brainwashes their people. If anything, you could say that they're against their people. I don't know.
Yeah,
Because
but we've got...
There is no freedom of speech, and if anyone talks out against the government in Turkey, they imprison them.
Yeah. That's
In
been
fact,
going on as
Turkey
well.
has one of the strictest, I'm trying to think of the word, but they have one
Censorship laws?
Yeah, that's it. They have one of the most strict censorships in journalism. They're very strict in journalism.
No, yeah.
In fact,
He threw a load in prison, didn't he, not long ago?
Sorry?
Erdogan, I think he threw a load of them in prison not long ago, yeah.
And I listened to this story, this shocked me when I heard about it. I'll try and make it short. I got an Uber once in the UK, and my driver was Turkish, and I was talking to him, telling him that I was from Cyprus, and he was telling me that he had a cousin who's in prison. He was imprisoned by the Turkish government, and his family, they're trying to get him out. And it's a really frustrating story, and it just shows that the Turks, there is no freedom of speech. Basically what happened, his cousin, this is what this driver was telling me, his cousin flew to Turkey, and at the airport of Turkey got stopped by police and was searched, and they went through his phone, and they must have suspected something. And on his phone, on his social media on Facebook, they saw that he had shared a pro Kurdish video against the Turks, and because of that, they threw him in prison. without a trial.
Wow, my God.
And he is Turkish. Like he just had something that they didn't agree with, and you know, and then I'm thinking, well, how did they know? How did they suspect? But I've heard quite a few times that they keep record of potential threats. And you know, this person, this driver, the man that I was talking to, him and his family, they've been trying to get him out of prison in Turkey, and they can't.
Wow.
They've gone to all sorts of human rights organisations.
Good grief, man. Good grief. Is he
Like, it's
is
not
he a
just
British resident? Is he a resident in the UK?
German. He lived in Germany. It's like, so this man's family lived in Germany. His cousin lived in Germany.
Yeah.
But they're Turkish. They got Turkish passports.
Yeah.
And this was the story that he was telling me. And you know, their people are also at war with their own government. The people that see the injustices and they don't, you know, the government doesn't care. They'll do wrong against their own people.
Yeah, and they're doing wrong against their. But I think there's many governments. We could open a whole another topic on this now.
But they don't even hide it though. They don't even.
They're blatant about it.
At least the other governments are like more subtle. Like Turkey doesn't care. Like
they're blatant. Yeah, they don't care. They just do whatever. All right, so anyway, thanks for coming, man. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Much for me. And this is our first ever podcast. Next time you're in Cyprus.
First of many, hopefully.
Yeah, hopefully. I'm going to do one with Jim soon. And there's a young lady who's just moved over from England, and she's studying Cypriot cultural, more psychological, studies to do with psychology between Greek and Turkish Cypriots. So we've got some podcasts in the pipeline as well. Yeah. So, but yeah, and thank you to everybody else who's listened, honestly, to us going on and on for so long. But I've enjoyed it. First podcast, first of many.
If anyone wants to, you know, add to the discussion, or you know, there were a couple topics that we were, some pieces of information we were a bit unsure of, you know. Discuss it in the comments. We'd love to hear more.
Yeah. Oh yeah, please do. Yeah. Hopefully this can spark some sort of discussion as well. You know, more than this is what we're aiming to do: get people talking, because the Cyprus issue has just been swept under the carpet internationally, you know, and we need to get people talking about it.
Περνούν τα χρόνια και εμείς πάλι τα ίδια.